Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut Through the Noise. I'm Jacque Kakareka. I am the Security Awareness Operations and North America Success Services Director here at SANS. My job is to work with global clients and help them navigate the challenges of implementing and maturing their security awareness programs. With me today is Lance Spitzner. He is the SANS Security Awareness Director of Research and Community. He shares his research with the community, builds training curricula, security awareness content. It's likely that many of you have actually been part of one of his classes. So they're fantastic, by the way. So today, Cut Through the Noise. What are we doing? Why are we here? Well, we put together this program to help distill some information in a way that's helpful to the community. Today, we'll be looking at some of the top security challenges and how to use security awareness training effectively to stay ahead of the evolving threats, and many of which have been amplified by the distributed workforce. We'll cover topics like remote security, new trends in advanced phishing tactics, how to prevent and remediate them, and increasing employee engagement. So some of you may have participated in a poll we did last week on LinkedIn, and it was asking, what is your number one security awareness challenge that is top of mind as we head into 2022? So as you see here, you're going to see that securing remote environments was the highest response. And then phishing, vishing, smishing, along with some engaging the remote employees, and followed up by data handling and compliance. So based on that poll, our audience said their number one security awareness challenges, top of mind as we enter 22 work, is securing remote environments. So Lance, talk to me about this a little bit here. As we enter this year and facing another year of challenges due to remote work, what do you think that people can do to ensure that security awareness training is going to help solve for this?
All right. Hey, first of all, folks, if you've never been to a live stream event, it's a little different than webcasts. Hopefully a lot more fun. The whole idea behind this is, for one, we're not going to bore you for the next hour. We want to keep this short in about 30 minutes. Two, no slides. We're all tired about death by PowerPoint. This is going to be more interactive between Jacque and myself, but also you. As you've seen, you can post questions and comments. I'm going to be watching them. Jackie's going to be watching them. We've got a couple people on the sidelines watching and helping. So ask your questions, share your tips and lessons learned. And throughout this, hopefully we'll get a chance to share some links, URLs, tips of our own. And the whole reason that Jacque and I are here together is you're going to get more of the strategic overview from me. So I work a lot with organizations all over the world on a very strategic approach to managing human risk through security awareness programs. And then Jacque works day to day helping SANS customers mature their awareness programs. So you'll get the high strategic point of view from me, but you'll get the boots on the ground viewpoint from Jacque as she's working with these organizations all over the world. So just a little bit why you have two of us and this overall format. So first and foremost, as Jacque mentioned, we did that interactive poll. And what we found interesting is securing remote environments was way at the top. Whereas things like, data handling, engaging was a little bit lower. And the reason we were a little surprised by that is we figured by 2 years later, we would have this all figured out. So let's discuss maybe why we feel there might be a problem and perhaps what we can do with the solution. And like I said, we want to keep this fun, interactive, post those questions. So first, secure remote environments. With COVID, obviously, we all know we had to scramble. Everybody's working from home. We've been doing this for a couple of years. So one of the challenges is, how can we create secure environments for people while they work at home or wherever the remote is? And the challenges is quite often it's not just them, spouses, kids, chaos. We all know this. But why do we still face this challenge 2 years later? And this is one of the reasons why. What happened is when COVID first happened almost 2 years ago, it was an immediate response. Everybody had to work from home, and it was almost like triage. what are the basics that we need to do to just operate now? Basically, email and access to files. So it was just very much the fundamentals, the basics to exist and operate. But over time, over the past 2 years, as we continue to work remotely, leadership and organizations are beginning to realize we need to give people full access to all of the sensitive data. We need to give people full access to all the different tools, not just email, but cloud, messaging, teaming, everything that's out there. So what's happened is over the past 2 years, instead of just doing the fundamental basics, my impression is a lot of us, the doors have been opened when we can do just about anything, accessing highly sensitive systems, managing or processing highly sensitive data, working with people at a global scale. And as a result, what happens is because so many people are doing such sensitive work at home, the risk has really increased. The stakes have increased. So now we're not only doing the basics, how to do email and things like that, but it's, what I call three-letter acronym vegetable soup, because now we're having people deal with VPNs, FDE, MDM, SSO, MFA, and you name it, and it just goes on and on. People are having to deal with all of these different technologies to enable them to do all these different things securely from home. And that's hard to do. Throw on the top of it, we're asking people to secure their Wi-Fi networks, their home devices, their personal devices, things like that. So now, just like I mentioned, that was kind of the strategic point of view. But Jackie, back to you. How are you seeing actual organizations struggle with this, but also what are they doing about it?
Absolutely. So you're right. It is very difficult for everybody to have that full capability to navigate that. So what I'm seeing is creation of some cheat sheets, some training materials that will help them navigate that sea of acronyms that are being thrown at them. What do these things mean? How do they navigate that in their environment? So things like checklists that'll give them some tools, links to tools, give them step-by-step instructions so that now they're able to be successful without somebody walking up to their desk and talking through it with them and helping them point and click. So that's one way. The other thing that has really been emphasized through some of my clients is we're seeing people are going to the office and back home, or they're going to a coffee shop to work, and they're doing different things like that. And as we hit the winter here, we're getting some of those frigid temperatures. So even simple things like physical security of your devices, we've talked about that. So as you go to the office, you're in there for a day. Now you go home, but you're going to stop at the gym. Don't leave that laptop in the trunk, right? Because it's going to be freezing cold. So even things around the physical security of it, keeping it safe as well as keeping it functional, that's something else that we've been navigating with some of the materials, using training modules, using homegrown checklists and cheat sheets have been really, really positive. Using distributed workforce type modules around the Internet of Things, around mobile devices, and how to be as safe as you can in locations that maybe aren't quite as safe, like that coffee shop. So,
Fantastic. And let me follow on one thing what Jackie just said so you can do it. And like I said, Jackie's going to get more tactical and I'll be more strategic. And one of the key challenges we have securing remote environments is people are overwhelmed because, like I said, we're overwhelming them with key technologies, terms, hey, we're dealing with ATP, we're dealing with these targeted attacks. So people are concerned. They want to do the right thing. But far too often, we in cybersecurity overwhelm people. And the reason is we don't think we're overwhelming them. It's called curse of knowledge. It's a cognitive bias. And the whole idea behind curse of knowledge is quite often the more of an expert you are at something, actually the worse you are at communicating it. And I see this happen all the time in cybersecurity. What happens is quite often the security team is communicating to the workforce, hey, how to be secure at home. And they're doing tips and checklists and things like that. But there's like 25 steps because the security team wants them to be secure. And the security team will walk people through how to set up a VPN, how to secure their Wi-Fi network, what is FTE, how to do MFA or 2FA, whatever you want to call it. And I just want to caution you. You may think we're not overwhelming people. You may think, well, 2FA, everybody's got this figured out by now. VPNs, it's point click. How hard can it be? Full disk encryption and things like that. It's not that hard. But when we put ourselves in their world, it is actually really, really, really hard. So one of the things we're going to do to challenge you to help secure remote environments is really simplify and shorten that list of what you're going to teach people. Don't overwhelm them with a huge number of risks and behaviors for each risk. Work with your security team and go, look, what are the top 3 things we need to do to secure the workforce at home? Yeah, we know, PPNP and all these other type of funky protocols would be nice, but what are the real key fundamental things we need people to focus on? And then make sure the security team is not creating those checklists, tip sheets, or email communications. Make sure you, the security awareness officer, somebody that can craft that message so it's really, really easy for anybody in your workplace to understand it. And then just to follow up, I'm already seeing a couple of really good posts up here about different types of challenges and things like that. So Leon just brought up the idea of privacy being another issue also. The idea of people can, for example, see what's behind you. That's why I always go for that blur. Not only privacy, but it's a bit of a mess back there anyways. But I don't know, Jackie, anything else to add to that one where we're trying to focus on secure remote environments?
One thing that I always encourage my clients to do is involve somebody in their marketing communications type team if they have a resource, because that's going to put that checklist, put that, information in terminology that's much more relevant and readable to the standard user. So.
And Jackie brings up a great point. And by the way, I'm not ignoring you folks when I look that way. That's my other monitor pulling up some goodies for you. Is the idea that the remarketing can make such good communicators and they can simplify is that is their job. They do that for a living. But B, once again, curse of knowledge. Quite often your marketing people are not cybersecurity experts. So when the security team gives the marketing team, hey, here's the tip sheet or the checklist for how to enable 2FA. We need you to push this out. And the marketing team goes, well, this is a little confusing. What do you mean by this or that? That's your litmus test. If the marketing team, if the communications team can't easily understand it, then your workforce won't understand it. So really, when it comes to securing remote environments, one of the most effective ways you can do it is make it simple. As few risks as possible, as a few behaviors as possible. And when it comes to communicating it, have an expert communicate it so it comes off as simple as possible. And Jackie nailed it. Build that partnership with marketing or comms. We're not asking you to be a communications expert. If you are, great. But if not, partner with one.
Absolutely. So thanks, Lance. That's great. So next concern, phishing, vishing, smishing, all of that, right? There's so many terminologies, so many ways that we're getting this coming at us. So how can we keep everybody safe? How can we keep them updated on this? What are we seeing as the new tactics and threats emerging at this time?
All right. So what are we seeing? Well, notice, first of all, we didn't just call this phishing. We called it vishing and smishing. And we're doing this for a reason. And one of the big ones is people think threats. And when it comes to phishing, it's all about email and it's all about just links or attachments, because that is big, that is common. But we've seen a real big uptick in also voice-based. And that's what vishing is, just basically voice phishing. And then smishing, basically text-based or SMS phishing. And sometimes, to be honest, when I'm actually training my workforce on these different risks, I sometimes try to avoid using these terms because sometimes I feel like we're overwhelming them with terms. So first and foremost, we need for people to understand that the only attack vector is not phishing. Now, it's common, but things like vishing and smishing, big uptick. Why? It works. Why is voice-based so common? I mean, that's a lot more work having to call people. or you can automate the calls. But there's no filters on phones. So much easier to reach people, much easier to convey emotion over that phone. Smishing, text-based, very easy to trick people because there's very little context. So when you get an email, you can start, well, who's the from, who's the to person? There's a lot of text there. It's easier to spot mistakes. But when it comes to something like smishing, you have very little context, one little liner. I bet a bunch of you have received all different types of text messages. Adele points out, don't forget twisting. Adele, I've never even heard of twisting. So do me a favor in comments, Adele, post what you mean by twisting. And that's what one concern about our field. You know, whoa, have you talked about fishing and spearfishing and whaling? And so what do we do about this? Vishing, smishing, fishing, things like this. Don't focus on all the different attack methods. Don't go, oh, well, you could get a COVID-based theme. You could get a news-based theme. You could get a theme from the FBI, you know, that's based here in the United States, Federal Bureau of Investigation, things like that. What I like to do, and this goes back to what we already talked about, is try to make your security as simple as possible and focus on the basics. And if you think about it, the indicators for a text-based attack, the indicators for a phishing or voice-based attack, or the indicators for a phishing attack are all very similar. So don't go into the latest examples. Well, here's the latest COVID attack, or here's the latest, salary raise attack, or the latest, because they change every month. If you get very specific in the attacks, people will focus just on those. What I like to do is focus on the fundamental indicators that they all share, or most share, and then focus on those indicators and then share the example. Okay, we focused on the indicators. Here's a COVID example. And then what I need you to do is focus on, this is how you could have figured out it was a fish, or here's a text message. Here's how you could have figured out it was a fish, and things like that. So really focus on the most common indicators. And what I'm going to post for you folks right here is the learning objectives that I would commonly teach for phishing. So what I'm going to do is ask the team to go ahead and share these. This might be a little too much for, let's see here, be a little bit too much for the idea of sharing on live stream. First time I'm trying this. But what I'm going to share with you is what I consider the fundamental learning objectives, the behaviors we want to teach when it comes to phishing. And you'll see those. I have 3 learning objectives, 3 key behaviors. And I'm trying to keep things simple as possible, but you also see how many of those indicators also apply to things like phishing and smishing. I try not to treat all 3 as separate attacks, but really just focus on those common indicators, because the bad guys are always coming up with new themes, if you will, but the fundamental indicators are the same. So, Jackie, how are you seeing others deal and handle with this in your world?
Yeah, I obviously they're doing some phishing assessments, trying to keep that going. But one of those things that I think is super important about interacting with is ethical phishing, letting people know that you are phishing them, and let them understand why it is that you are doing this assessment with them, or that release of information to them, because you want to keep them safe, keep the organization safe. And the follow up to that is, let them know that they've done a good job. So let them know when people are reporting, let people know that the impact that their action took on the environment, the work environment. So, hey, we had this many people report it. We were able to stop it, but had we not, this could have. So let them know of the positives. Make it safe for them to interact with you, and you're going to have a much safer environment overall.
And I see Stephen was sharing all those different texts that I had about the learning objectives for phishing. And it's a little bit long and messy. So what I'm going to do right after this is I'll post and share those on the LinkedIn, on a blog. So it's much easier for you to leverage and see an actual example. But Jackie also brings up a really good point. And it also brings up and follows up on, I want to be sure I pronounce the name right, Olivier. I probably pronounced it wrong. My apologies. what ends up happening is phishing simulations are a fantastic way to help people train. And notice I say phishing simulations and training. I try to not say testing or assessments, can have a bit of a negative connotation. And let people, hey, no, let them know we're trying to help you both detect at home and at work. One of the things I like to really emphasize is that when it comes to phishing, don't report to leadership and management if somebody falls victim just once. That's training. The only time you ever want to identify people by name is if they're repeat clickers, represent a high risk to the organization. And before you do any type of enforcement or anything like that, reach out to them, talk to them, find out why there are issues. If you do phishing simulations right, it can come off as a way of gamification. Hey, did you click last week? Nope. Hey, did you? Yeah, I clicked last week. But if you do it wrong, you can really create a toxic security culture very, very fast. So just like Jackie was saying, focus, hey, we're here to help you, not punish you.
Absolutely. Lance, I'm not sure if you had seen that latest Google type attack. It was a little bit different of a threat vector there, where it really wasn't an attachment. It really wasn't that same link. Had you seen the article on that?
So these type of attacks have been happening for years. This is nothing new. What ends up happening is the idea cyber attackers are always trying to create some type of trusted communication. So whenever possible, they'll use Google Documents or things like that, or use the Google platform, the Amazon platform, and things like that. That's why I'm always trying to focus on these most common indicators that work regardless of the technology, the platform, or the modality. And it's these indicators like sense of urgency, curiosity, too good to be true, things like that. And like I said, I tried to share it on live stream. Didn't come quite as clean as I wanted, so we'll share it with you folks afterwards.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Lance. So another concern of the group, the community, is that data handling, that compliance piece, right? So, aside from PII, from privacy, we have a lot of other regulatory guidelines, right? Another acronym soup here of GDPR, CCPA, all of those that are coming through that we have to keep our eyes on. So how do we keep compliant? How do we stay on top of where does this data live? Who has access to it? What is the risk of it? What's your advice in that area?
Well, what's interesting, folks, is first of all, notice how data handling and compliance was what everybody was least concerned about. I thought, that's interesting. And I'm going to take two guesses why that is the case. So first, you're going to address your biggest risks, your biggest problems. Things like phishing and securing remote environments, that's the biggest risk out there. But so that's where we want to start. But if you think about it, also, these other top three issues, phishing, smishing, securing remote environments, engaging remote employees, these are all key elements that actually contribute to and help with the data handling and compliance. So what ends up happening with data handling compliance is by focusing on these issues, and the other big one I would add is passwords. You go a long way to helping ensure you're compliant. But Jackie, if you can, I'd like to back up and just real quick talk about engaging remote employees, because that's the third one. It was pretty tied
Sure.
with phishing, and smishing.
Yeah.
So,
That's near and dear to my heart there, Lance. So go ahead.
yep, absolutely. So, oh my gosh, how do we remotely engage? So, what I'm seeing at a very broad level is focus on how people personally benefit. So what happens is we're all working at home. We're all massively distracted. We have spouses. We're trying to deal with kids going to school, kids learning from home. Activities are changing on a day-to-day basis. Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it canceled? Trying to go to the doctors can be a challenge. So everybody's really, really overwhelmed. So getting people's attention can be hard. So when you start talking about things like MFA and phishing and passwords, what ends up happening is people can quickly tune you out. So what we're seeing work really well is that people focus on personal benefit. So when you're talking about things like phishing, like updating, like passwords, like even VPNs, focus on how people personally benefit. They're far more likely to engage, far more likely to listen, because you're explaining what's in it for them. And the beautiful thing is the learning objectives, the behaviors you're teaching on phishing, on passwords, on updating are the exact same behaviors both at work and at home because it's the same technologies and the same risks. So people are far more likely to engage anytime you can twist it. So think about it. Announce to everybody in your workforce next week, you're going to host a lunch and learn or an event about how to secure your home environment. And that'll be things like updating and passwords and phishing. And see how many people register. And the following month, announce to your workforce, hey, folks, we're going to host a webcast event on data compliance or data classification. Oh, yeah. Then see how many sign up. So by focusing on personal benefit, people are far more likely to engage. And then what Jackie can share you too is the how you engage is going to be far more effective. Right. Because what happens is if you do a one-day dialogue, people will tune you out. An example of a one-way dialogue would be things like blogging or webcasts. The more interactive you can make something like we're doing right here, or, a Slack channel where we're answering people's questions, how to secure their mobile devices, online forum, the more likely to engage. So you want to leverage these technologies. That's not a one-way monologue, but a two-way dialogue. So Jackie, what are you seeing people doing on the engagement side?
So doing a lot of different things. So as you said, Lance, right? Make it personal, right? Make it relevant. So things like we're creating short curricula that we're putting out that are, hey, here's about peripherals or about like what you said about your Wi-Fi, and then extending out that concept into applying to their home world as well as their work world. So making it apply when as Lance said, does something for me, I'm going to internalize it and I'm going to remember it, and I'm likely to act upon it a little bit more frequently than if it's off to the side and just a little checkbox that I have to do. So things like, oh, we can do, let's see, we've done things from security shares. This is one that I think is really, really fun. One of my clients, I got this from one of my clients, that what they do is they have all of these Zoom meetings, right? So we're doing these things face to face, so to speak, like we are right here. Or sometimes we don't have our camera on, and you don't have to have it on all the time, right? So, but one thing they're doing is when there's 4 or more people from their organization on a call, they're doing security shares. What does that mean? So I, as part of a cyber team, I might be the person that says, I've got a security share, and I will share out a tip around cybersecurity, how to keep an environment safe, something that just is, maybe it's about my mobile device. Did you see there's a new update that just came out? Whereas you might have somebody that's going to talk about physical security. But you get this dialogue back and forth with people in your organization. You're creating connections and you're sharing information, and you're also pulling in information. So that was one of those that I thought was just absolutely amazing. And I've had a lot of other clients that have, I've shared that with, that they're like, I love this. Takes a little time to implement sometimes, but it is something that's great to do. And even if you just do it yourself, right? Things like having a virtual background, right? Something that does have some security awareness information on it. So when you are in a meeting with others, they're doing things like that just are there, and it becomes part of your culture. Or kicking off a training with a video of a leadership person just talking about their experience with the training. Things like that are great, and doing bite size, right? Not everything has to be formal. Let's use some things like a fact sheet, a checklist, some digital signage, things that are going to just give them those reminders, because I think we've all been there, right? You cram for that test in high school, college, right? You run through it, you know it, you ace that test, and then about 6 months later, you kind of fall off that scale a little bit of being an A student, and you're now, some of that information is not quite as top of mind. So by putting out these little nuggets, these little reminders, security tips, they're great ways to keep it front of mind. They're the types of things that are just going to keep the program running, keep them engaged a little bit, again, by making it relevant, making the connection, and keeping it short and relevant. Great things to making it personal.
So, and the follow up on Jackie, that's another one. Make it personal, but also make it short. Going back to the idea of people being overwhelmed. So it's, you got to go do it in sound bites, make it fun, make it short, a little maybe short podcast, an infographic on how to secure the home environment. And what I've done is I just shared 2 links that you'll see posting. And both of them are just ideas on how you can be interactive, fun, and engage. The first is it's a webcast. It's not a webcast. It's a talk from last year's summit by Nika on how to build your own scavenger hunt, an interactive event that helps reinforce those key behaviors. It was one of the top talks from the summit, and I just posted that. But also fun ways to engage, create short, silly little videos. I posted a link to Jill Barkley's video. It was one of the top award-winning videos. It cost her $50 to make this video in her office using her daughter's toys as props for the video. It's a riot. It's only a minute long, but it really reinforces some key points. So the key idea to really engaging people is keep the topics short. Keep that list of things you want to teach them short. Focus on the highest risks. Don't know? Talk to your security team. Or don't know? Start with passwords and phishing. Quite often the common most 2 that I see. But then, like Jackie was saying, keep it personal and keep it short. Not one big monolithic training, but lots of fun little stuff, different tidbits. Another one, bring in a guest speaker. If you're based in the United States, reach out to the FBI, the Secret Service, the IRS. See if they can come in and just do a short talk. The one awesome thing about all of us going virtual, it's so much easier to get speakers because they don't have to travel. Mix it up. They're probably tired of hearing you at some point, but if the FBI or IRS can share some really good stories about how to protect yourself, identity theft, wow, that's going to be a big hit. Jackie, anything else? I've noticed we're about a half an hour into this, so I don't want to take up too much more time, but what have we forgotten? What else did we want to cover?
I think just a little bit of that data handling and just some of that compliance piece, just looping into that and trying to give a little bit of more information about that. I know that assessing risk and finding that risk and understanding what data you have is such a chasm, right? It's like you think you have a handle on it. I can say that I've been working with a couple organizations internally here that what we're doing is we're utilizing something that we have a product behavioral risk assessment. But what we're doing is the point of this is we're looking at what types of data the organization handles. What are those things that would be that take the organization down if it was compromised? Where is it being stored? How are they handling it? And who? Putting those pieces together, game changer. Excuse me.
My secret, always have tea with me while speaking. And folks, by the way, I'm noticing a lot of really good points. A couple of, like, for example, one of you mentioned BJ Fogg's behavior model. Love it. BJ Fogg was actually the keynote speaker at our last summit. He's my hero. Why BJ Fogg makes behavior change so simple. In fact, I'm going to share another behaviormodel.org. If we could share that link with folks, that would be awesome. And I'm noticing a couple other comments also, folks, how you're gamifying the phishing program. Gamifying phishing is just another way to remotely engage. If you do things like phishing right, your workforce thinks you're looking out for them. You're building that positive security culture, more likely to engage, more likely to change behavior. And folks, keep sharing. That is so key. And just wrapping up, as Jackie was mentioning, compliance can be a big challenge. Also, quite often, one of the biggest challenges is just figuring out what data do we need to be compliant with and where is that data? So if you in awareness don't even know, well, what compliance standards do we even need to comply with? That's the first place to start. Talk to your GRC, governance, risk, and compliance team, compliance, audit, legal, who's ever in charge of that. Find out, hey, what do we need to be compliant with? And start there. Jackie, anything else?
No, I think it's just, as I said, engaging, finding out where that data is, sometimes asking the questions, doing a survey will tell you where it does live that you didn't even know was taking place. So do a survey, whether it's super formal, but find out where it is because it can take you down in a heartbeat.
All right. Hey, fantastic. And do me a favor, folks. You've got our Twitter accounts there. What I'm going to do also is share my email address. If you have any questions, any challenges you're facing, so you can reach out to me or Jackie via email. We want to hear with you. And also, like I said, I'm going to talk to the team. I want to get out those learning objectives because that's so important. The example for fishing and a couple of other links also for you. But Jackie, anything else?
Nothing from my side, Lance. Thanks for your time. I really always love this. You always have great information.
And like I said, folks, the idea here is you want to keep it short and interactive. This is something new I'm trying for the first time, and I think first time for Jackie also. Don't be afraid to try something new and fail. That's how we're just going to get better. I'm epic for it. Fail fast. Drives my wife nuts.
Yeah. Love it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Reminder, all the resources mentioned today are in the description section. If you need some security awareness, love to have you connect with us, SANS.org security-awareness, and let us know your thoughts on this format. What other topics would you be interested in finding out, about having us discuss? Give us your feedback. We want to hear it. So thank you very much. Lance, thanks again. Take care, everybody. Take care.